A lot of people have trouble with this question, and I think that a lot of it comes down to fractions. At some point in most people's lives, they had some sort of weird phobia because of fractions. You just like didn't learn it right, or you messed it up on a test or something, and you just kind of developed this fear. And fractions, the most important thing we can do is remember that fractions are division. Yeah, fractions are division. You know how to divide, right? So if you know how to divide, you know how to use fractions. So we need to remember whenever we see fractions in equations, there are ways of canceling them out. We can look at them as fractions, or we can look at them as division. And division, we know, goes very, very well with multiplication. So there's lots of ways to think about it. I'm going to just say that our strategy here is to memorize formulas, and mostly because there's no shortcut. I'd love to guess and check on this. That would be really great. And there's ways of being clever about it. The main problem with guess and check is that what they want from us is not something normal. X divided by 5. If they said, what is the value of x? All of our answer choices would be simple. We could just plug them back in. And some people do that, and they get it wrong because they're guessing and checking with something that isn't usable in the original equation, or at least not in an easy way. So we could convert each of these into a value of x, but that would take some work. So I'd rather focus on dealing with the fraction. So if I have some fractions or division in a question, I know that the way to cancel out things in math is to do the opposite. So if I have division, the opposite of that is multiplication, so we're going to use multiplication to cancel it out. Some of you learned this as cross-multiplying, and we do some diagonal multiplying. That's fine. That's basically a way to get rid of two fractions at once with kind of what seems like one step. But I'm going to break it apart and just show you why that works. Because sometimes we only have one fraction, and then that scares us because it doesn't follow the cross-multiplying rules. But the rule is we can multiply to get rid of something. So if I have an x on the top of a fraction and an x on the bottom of a fraction, those two things cancel out, right? X divided by x is 1. Same way as 3 divided by 3 is 1. So by multiplying, I'm canceling out those two x's, getting rid of the fraction on the left side. But of course, I can't just go multiplying by a random number. You got to do it on both sides for balance. Now, if I do that, I'll just do it in two steps. So that becomes now 5 is equal to 15x over x plus 20. And because that bottom piece has a plus, and addition doesn't really mix well with multiplication and division, we can't just go crossing those x's out. And obviously if we did, we'd get some sort of weird result anyway. So we can't do that. But what we can do is the same thing. We have a fraction. We don't like the fraction. So think of it as division, and get rid of division by using multiplication. So that's okay. We're going to do that, and x plus 20 over 1 and gets rid of the x plus 20 that's on the bottom. So those are going to cancel. But just like before, if we do something on one side of an equation, we have to balance it out on the other. And in this particular case, because this thing acts as a unit, this x plus 20, we're going to have to distribute. So that 5 is going to have to go to both parts. And look, we could have avoided the distribution, but I think it's just safer to do it. So what ends up happening then is we get 5x plus 100 is equal to 15x. Then it becomes just normal math, right? Let's subtract 5x from both sides. We're going to get 100 is equal to 10x. How do we get rid of multiplication? Well, we do the opposite, which is division. And we get that x is equal to 10. And that's an answer, but that's a trap answer because remember, we have to show our work and go back to the question that we highlighted before. They don't want x. They want x over 5. So that's going to be 10 over 5, which is 2, which is the actual answer. Personally, I think this is kind of hard for a number 5 because I guess I know that everyone has some trouble with fractions, but you know, it is supposed to be on the easier side of the questions, and so, you know, you really don't want to lose points on something like this. So fractions, you know yourself. If fractions are something that you struggle with, you really want to do some practice. Go on Khan Academy, really just like drill fractions. You don't want them to look weird to you. There are some rules that are a little unique, but for the most part, if you think of fractions as division, they fit into the normal world of algebra much more easily than you might feel when you see them. So practice fractions. They are going to come up in the test. because the SAT knows you don't like them. So they're going to throw them at you just to mess with you.